This weird tale is actually pretty creepy. It is described by others as quite strange due to how it gets inside the depraved and obsessed individual in the story. Because of the fantastical elements of this story, it holds the reader in a suspension of disbelief, which makes the story seem just a little bit more plausible, despite the fact that such a thing probably couldn't really happen. Probably. Hello everybody, your friendly neighborhood demonic Ravenwolf is back with another weird tale. This tale comes from the short story written by Ranpo. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Probably not. This tale sends shivers down the spine as you sit comfortably in your favorite chair, which is the theme of this 1925 story, The Human Chair. This story starts off with a well-known Japanese author opening up her mail. She complains about receiving amounts of fan mail as well as stories that aren't really well written until she comes across what she perceives at first to be a manuscript. However, things take a very unusual turn when she starts to realize that this seems to be more of a letter. Within the letter's contents, the author reveals that he has a disturbing secret he must divulge and has committed a crime that he can no longer keep secret. Of course, the unusual opening of the letter catches her attention, and she decides to read further into the monstrous body of text of this mysterious author. In this unusual letter, the author describes himself as being ugly and grotesque due to his unsanitary living and the fact that he's just freaking ugly. The author states that he is nothing more than a simple, humble craftsman whose talent is in making chairs for various wealthy and aristocratic clients, and for some reason takes an unhealthy thrill of sitting into the chairs that he has created and imagining the lives of the wealthy people who have ordered the chairs for some reason. Yeah, it's a very weird description. Through these unusual ramblings, she finally comes to the account where he describes what exactly the unusual thing he did. Being an excellent craftsman, he described the process of making enough room in a chair for a man to sit in unnoticed. He described the task of making the chair and trying to perfect this quote-unquote new environment he could live in and how he could maintain this habitat of being inside the chair. Originally, according to him, he did this to become a thief and steal stuff from the hotel that the chair is placed in. Although he does successfully steal items from the hotel, the story gets even creepier when he starts to describe the feeling of people sitting on him while he's in the chair, as well as the different body types and how they feel. Seriously guys, the way this guy describes the feeling he gets is just incredibly creepy, and it just shows how depraved this character actually is, and devoid of reality he truly is. Eventually in the story, the chair itself gets auctioned off from the hotel and is purchased by a Japanese woman and her husband. The woman is described as an artist and becomes her favorite chair to sit in. Gee, I wonder who this is going to be. Of course, it is revealed that the chair from the story is the chair in her own house, and the guy who's writing this is the person who has been living in the chair for the past few months. And, not only that, he is in love with her and wants to get to know her better. Yes, this all happens in the story. Fortunately for her, at the time he is not in the chair, but she doesn't get too comfortable when she realizes that he's actually watching her with binoculars from another apartment building for a signal that he can come back over, and that she's okay with this creepy guy who lived in her chair? She then, of course, logically locks herself in her room and is too afraid to check to see if the chair indeed has a hollow center. But then the story takes another weird turn. Yes, this happens. It turns out that she receives another letter that says that everything that she read was just a story, and the writer was testing to see if the tale was any good with another author. So everything was just a story. Or was it? The story ends here. We never really know for sure if everything in the story was true or if it was all just a work of fiction. Now I know there's a lot of plot holes in this story. For instance, wouldn't the guy stink after a while, making the chair not a pleasurable experience to sit in? Also, he has to go to the bathroom sometimes. It says in the story he took a rubber bag in there with him, but after a while, that stuff's gonna stink after months and months of being in this chair. It does have a plot hole there. However, the insanity of the story and the deranged character in it can make you suspend your suspension of disbelief just for a little bit to question your surroundings, as well as wonder for yourself if indeed you are alone. Also, the story makes you want to read more to find out what exactly is going to happen here. The longer we stay in the head of this character, the more disturbing the descriptions he gets from describing what it feels like to be in the chair, as well as how his body gets deformed from sitting in that position so long. It gets insanely weird. Also, his justification for doing this feels a little bit plausible, especially in our modern day internet age, which is why this story has aged so particularly well. Hopefully you have not run across anybody like this in your life, but in this age of fast media content and information, we run across people who have an unhealthy obsession with a person, place, or thing more commonly these days. If you like unusual tales of the sadistic and strange, I definitely recommend this story. Take care, everybody, and always watch where you sit.